On the 35th anniversary of the historic Saba Saba, pro-democracy rallies in Kenya commemorated every July 7th to mark the struggle for multi-party democracy. Protests erupted nationwide. Frustration over rising costs of living, rampant corruption, and a string of police-related deaths had already gripped the country. Amid this unrest, a controversial and chilling order reportedly emerged. Riot police were instructed to shoot protesters in the legs if they did not disperse. This time, however, something unexpected happened. Instead of responding with force, many officers refused to follow the directive. Eyewitnesses described surreal scenes where officers received commands through their radios, only to lower their weapons and declare, "We will not shoot our people." The crowd, once filled with anger and fear, erupted into applause and disbelief. Videos of these moments quickly went viral, sparking debate across the country and beyond. Historically, Kenya's police have been known for their aggressive enforcement tactics, often acting under direct orders from political authorities. But this moment revealed a significant shift for a segment of the police, especially the younger recruits. The idea of turning their weapons on fellow citizens was too much. Many had joined the force with hopes of reform and a promise of serving, not suppressing, the public. Government officials moved quickly to deny any formal shoot-to-kill order had been issued, suggesting that circulating footage was misleading. However, independent human rights organizations and legal experts pointed to evidence of similar directives being given. In multiple locations, the refusals weren't isolated. They represented a growing awareness within Kenya's security forces about the legal and moral consequences of using violence against peaceful protesters. Kenyan law, supported by international human rights agreements, clearly limits the use of lethal force to situations involving an immediate threat to life. Using live rounds against citizens protesting economic hardship or political injustice would almost certainly violate those standards. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights even warned officers that following such orders could make them personally liable for criminal prosecution. This was not just about legality, it was about identity, who the police are meant to serve. Over the years, reforms in police training have emphasized negotiation, non-lethal control, and de-escalation. But the sudden resurgence of old-style tactics threatened to undo those efforts. The refusal to follow the shooting order can thus be seen as a moral stand, as much as a strategic one. The protests themselves had been sparked by the suspicious death of activist and blogger Albert Owong in police custody. That tragedy ignited a broader movement calling for justice, transparency, and an end to impunity. By the time the controversial orders came down, the public was already deeply mistrustful of the security apparatus. In that volatile climate, any violent suppression would have only worsened the situation. What added another layer of meaning to the refusal was the growing influence of continental movements and philosophies. Many analysts and activists drew parallels between the Kenyan officers' defiance and the ideas promoted by Burkina Faso's transitional leader, Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré's firm stance that a leader should never shed the blood of his people to stay in power has deeply resonated across Africa. In Kenya, protesters carried placards referencing Traoré, while social media lit up with hashtags like #TRAORE effect and #Protect Not Punish. The idea that policing should serve the people, not control them, seems to be gaining traction, particularly among younger officers more attuned to social media and Pan-African solidarity. This quiet revolt within Kenya's police force has far-reaching implications. It shattered the long-held perception that security forces are unconditionally loyal to political power. It also raised important questions about accountability, ethics, and the future of policing, not just in Kenya, but across the continent. While the government may attempt to dismiss or downplay the event, the significance of the refusal cannot be overstated. It symbolized a breaking point, a potential shift in the very foundations of how state authority is enforced. It also served as a reminder that real power doesn't always come from commanding obedience. It can come from choosing justice. What happened in Kenya wasn't just about protest or politics. It was a deeply human moment where officers looked into the eyes of demonstrators and saw not enemies, but equals. And in that recognition, they made a decision that could change the trajectory of African democracy. In an age where every act is captured and shared in real time, the refusal to follow an unjust command sent a powerful message across borders. The silence of the guns spoke louder than any order ever could. The recent act of defiance by Kenyan police officers may not be an isolated moment. It could signal a broader continental awakening. Across Africa, a growing wave of consciousness appears to be taking root, where the actions of one leader inspire bravery in others, often in unexpected places. Before we continue, don't forget to like and share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more content exploring Black history, culture, civilization, and identity. Now, the refusal by Kenyan riot police to obey a reported shoot-to-maim order during widespread protests did more than prevent immediate violence. It sent shockwaves through the nation's political and institutional systems. It challenged long-held assumptions about the relationship between the state, its enforcers, and the people. For years, the Kenyan police were seen primarily as tools of authority. But in this moment, officers broke with tradition and refused to fire on their fellow citizens. This act raised profound questions. Is loyalty to political leadership absolute, or should it be overridden by a deeper loyalty to the people? For many Kenyans, this moment felt like a rare and hopeful breakthrough. In the long struggle for accountability and justice, protesters, who had grown used to tear gas and rubber bullets, suddenly found themselves facing police officers who responded not with violence, but with conscience. These officers, once viewed as enforcers of oppression, began to be seen as individuals capable of independent judgment and empathy. The refusal sparked hope that the invisible wall between civilians and police might be beginning to crumble, offering the possibility of a more just and people-focused security apparatus. However, the implications for Kenya's democratic institutions are complex. A functioning state relies on a disciplined and obedient security force to maintain order, especially during times of unrest. The idea that officers might choose which orders to obey poses challenges to the traditional chain of command. Some government officials have already hinted at disciplinary action for those who publicly reject commands, suggesting that such behavior could undermine state stability. Yet others in the political and civil society sectors argue this development should be welcomed, not punished, as a sign of progress toward depoliticized and ethical policing. Human rights advocates view this moment as a unique chance to accelerate police reform. Kenya has long faced criticism for police brutality, extrajudicial killings, and political interference in law enforcement. Numerous reform initiatives, backed by both domestic and international actors, have aimed to reshape the force into one that serves citizens rather than instills fear. While progress has often been slow, this incident presents a living example of what a reformed police culture could look like, where moral judgment isn't just permitted, but encouraged. The ripple effects of this refusal are also being felt within the protest movements themselves. Activists are beginning to see potential allies in the police, adjusting their strategies to focus on building dialogue and empathy rather than confrontation. If this shift continues, Kenya could witness a unique evolution in protest culture, where the distinction between state and people becomes increasingly blurred. Globally, the event has captured attention as well. International human rights organizations have praised the officers' actions as a landmark moment for democracy in Africa. In contrast to many parts of the world where state forces continue to suppress dissent with brutality, Kenya's example shows the possibility of ethical resistance from within. The optics of this situation matter deeply. As a nation often viewed as a beacon of democracy and stability in East Africa, Kenya now has an opportunity to redefine its image not as a state that crushes dissent, but as one learning to embrace and protect civic resistance. Still, the road ahead remains uncertain. An act of conscience like this could either pave the way for widespread reform or provoke a backlash from authorities determined to reassert control. Much will depend on how political leaders choose to respond, how the judiciary interprets such refusals under the law, and how effectively the public continues to demand meaningful change. Though these events happened in Kenya, their implications reach far beyond its borders. Across the African continent, there are signs of a cultural shift in how security institutions perceive their role. Many younger officers, shaped by the digital age and influenced by Pan-African ideals, are beginning to challenge the authoritarian practices inherited from colonial policing systems. These systems, originally designed to control and suppress, have persisted in many post-independent states, often serving political elites rather than the public. But things are changing. A new generation of officers, more informed and globally connected, are rejecting violence as the default response to civil unrest. One leader who continues to inspire this mindset is Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré. His promise never to shed the blood of his people has deeply resonated across Africa, particularly among youth. Traoré's leadership style, which frames strength as the ability to protect rather than punish, has become a symbol of hope for those who believe in ethical governance. Clips of Traoré speaking to crowds circulate widely on social media, and his philosophy is influencing how both civilians and security personnel view power and responsibility. The Kenyan police refusal is part of this larger continental trend, a growing movement toward conscience-driven policing and governance. It invites an important question: what if security forces across Africa began consistently acting as neutral protectors instead of political enforcers? Such a shift would radically alter the dynamics of protest, dissent, and governance. It would require governments to engage more sincerely with citizens, relying on dialogue and transparency rather than coercion. Civil society would be empowered, and fear would no longer be a barrier to public participation. The political cost of ignoring citizen grievances would rise significantly. Of course, systemic change is never easy. There will be pushback from entrenched interests who benefit from obedience-based policing. Some regimes may attempt to tighten control, passing stricter laws or creating elite units loyal only to political leadership. These moves could cause rifts within security forces, pitting reform-minded officers against those clinging to the old order for job security or political favor. Yet despite these risks, the narrative is already shifting. The Kenyan example is being discussed not only by activists, but by officers in countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. Online forums and WhatsApp groups are abuzz with conversations about what happened in Nairobi. One simple question is being echoed across borders: who do we truly serve, the government in power or the people of our nation? If this question gains traction, we may be witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in African policing, one grounded in ethics, human rights, and accountability. This transformation won't happen overnight, but moments like Kenya's refusal create openings in a system once thought unchangeable. Through those openings, possibilities for justice, fairness, and true democracy begin to emerge. Kenya's riot police may not have set out to start a revolution, but their actions have undeniably shifted the conversation. Whether this becomes a defining moment for Africa's security culture depends on how leaders, citizens, and institutions respond moving forward. One thing is certain: the world is watching, and the future of policing in Africa may have just taken a decisive new turn. What do you think? Will the Kenyan police refusal inspire other African security forces to reject violent orders? Share your thoughts in the comments. Is this the beginning of a future where the people and the police stand side by side, not in opposition? If you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. We're committed to exploring the untold stories of Black culture, history, and civilization. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.